company was founded in Port Arthur, Texas, and it was founded a lot earlier than 1959. But this entity right here out of Maryland is extremely important because it's 1959 that someone creates a false social security number out of Texas for one of the founders' wives. So it's Harry Wilton and Helen Wilton Stoner. And Helen Wilton has her an alias social security number generated for her out of Texas the very week that Queen Elizabeth is in Chicago visiting with Joe Kennedy and it claims Nixon, right? So this entity is created just ahead of her visit, a big meeting in Chicago. And what are they doing? They're kicking off the plot to siphon and steal and transfer the ownership of the Texas company permits and patents to Gulf Oil. So this is the Texas company under the laws of Maryland with, an address in New York, Texaco Inc., all phases of the, petro business. As a foreign corporation. And we can't really read who the vice president is of the Texas company, a Delaware corporation. It doesn't even list the person's name. But in 59, looks like it's John Dunn, William Schmidt, Harry Wolf, right? They're now like the newly, and then they're basically taking over everything. So to construct, purchase, lease, and otherwise acquire, own, hold, maintain, operate, sell, convey, mortgage, pledge, lease, exchange, or otherwise dispose of and deal in any interest, estate, or right and real and personal property of any kind or description, including but not limited to wells, mines, plants, refineries, factories, mills, warehouses, storage tanks, wharfs, docks, piers, waterworks, reservoirs, flumes, pipelines, pumping stations, terminals, office buildings, stations, ships, boats, tugs, launches, barges, and other marine vessels and equipment, including airplanes, hydroplanes, entire airports, tractors, trucks, vehicles, roads, trails, canals, radio stations, any other facility, machinery, equipment, railroads, railroad locomotives, cars, telegraphs, telephone lines, utility lines. This is what the Texaco company was formed to acquire. Got it? Got it? They were formed to acquire any and all assets to move the agenda along of taking over the United States. And it's Albert Ward. Albert Ward in February. That's awesome. Now, it shut down in 63, but it looks like in 1977, this Texas company comes back with no revenue, but just 2,000 shares out of the Union Commerce Building, this time Georgia. Inactive. You see how this Texas company is now inactive? So it's gone. This Texas company was a fake entity, but the Texas company is still operating, the real one. Does that make sense? Might be confusing for some. But this is not the real Texas company. This is the shell-based Texas company that had been created. And again, there's no activity. It is still not active. So this Texas company is now in White Plains. See that White Plains address, that Westchester White Plains? But it has not been active. It's just reporting shares and no activity. And this is blank, missing a page. 95. Now it's Houston with the P.O. Box. Inactive. This is very important. I'm sorry to drag everybody through this, but this is a P.O. Box in Houston, basically bringing back an entity that had been shut down historically, and now it's in Columbus. Bringing back the Texas company. So the Texas company, as of 96, is being refiled out of Columbus, Ohio. And this is the pinnacle and most important document for people to see. The Texas company, which was a fake entity incorporated from 1959, is part of this massive, CSC Corporation based update that occurs in July of 2000. It's the state of Ohio reincorporating and reinstating 7,809 entities and or amending them. And this is the state of Ohio saying that because of the urgent nature, my staff has reviewed these filings you submitted, and the final number is 7,809 entities. Because of the urgent nature of your request and to safeguard the integrity of the records provided to the public from my office, we will enter these changes in our database upon the receipt of a check for $3 per record. Way to go, state of Ohio. Way to push back. So they'll go ahead and proceed with this work as soon as they get their check in the amount of $24,000. This little coordinator, whoever she is. Not a bad, check for a little bit of extra work on a Friday. This is an exceptional circumstance and should not be considered as setting a precedent. Each of the 7,809 records will be corrected, and the information on the website of the Office of the Secretary of State will reflect these changes of the statutory agent addresses and or names. My staff appreciates the opportunity to resolve challenges efficiently and effectively. It is my hope that we will continue to cooperate in order to provide optimum service to the citizens and businesses that rely on our records and our system. Thanks, Ohio. Yeah, so there's basically thousands and thousands and thousands of entities, including a whole boatload of Texaco, that are basically absorbing the identity and assets and ownership of historical estates, trusts, and businesses. Targeting mainly oil and gas. But let me tell you, when you look at the airlines, remember how they're acquiring airlines and airports? Hi, welcome to Mossad World, everybody. Welcome to Mossad World. This is Schottenstein's, this is Epstein, this is Wexner, and they were working for Mossad. All right? So this is Israel kicking in a back-end platform to help siphon U.S. insurance, U.S. airlines, U.S. securities ahead of 9/11. They literally backdate and re-record the ownership of the World Trade Center. And how do they do that? Well, the Steiner Stoner Land Trust that was, hijacked, held title to the George Washington land patent. That's one way. Another way is nationwide. They create a company called Westfield that is a fake insurance company brought back to life from the 60s. Westfield ends up, merging with Allied, and Allied ends up merging with Nationwide right ahead of 9/11. Yet Jeffrey Epstein was issued a $6.7 billion bailout by George Bush. Where did all that money go? I'll tell you this much. It was paying George Bush through a private partnership set up as the Texas Rangers baseball partnership out of Canada. I'm really good at tracking money where it leaves the country, and now that I know that our president and vice president and the Energy Task Force were all just part of this leading up to 9/11. It was part of a secret CIA coup gone wrong. Well, it went right. It went right for the Israeli investors behind this. It went right for the king and queen. Camilla. They killed off Diana Spencer to kick this off, by the way. Evil people are behind this, and I don't really like the fact that they've leveraged and back-end integration to steal not only from farmers and Americans, but my family. And somebody in the United States owes my mother a tremendous apology. She and my aunt caught this, but of course you're not going to admit that you are all terrorists. So they defraud my mom and my aunt as of 2014, and then they amend and re-record George H. Dunlap and U. Dunlap's estates to allow for hazardous waste dumping and bio-warfare chemicals on Ohio land. And they are using them, I assure you. I have tested the soil.